Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources, the studies, the data, and pull out the key insights for you. Today, we're diving into something pretty major, the 2017 Equifax data breach. It's often called one of the most, devastating cybersecurity incidents ever. And Equifax, you probably know, is huge. One of the big three credit reporting agencies. They hold data on like 800 million people and almost 90 million businesses globally. The numbers involved here are just, wow. About 145 million people in the U.S. had their personal data exposed. That's more than 40% of the U.S. population. Think about that. And the data itself, names, birth dates, addresses, social security numbers, even credit card numbers for some folks. Okay, so let's unpack this whole thing. We need to look at how it happened, how Equifax responded or didn't respond well initially, the massive costs, and maybe most importantly, what we can all learn from it, what you can learn from it.
Exactly. This isn't just recounting history. It's a really critical case study. We want to connect the dots. Why was it so bad? And why does it still matter so much today in our digital lives?
Right. So how did it start? How did the attackers actually get in? Our sources point to March 10th, 2017. They exploited a specific vulnerability, CVE 2017-5638 is the technical name. It was on Equifax's online dispute portal. Basically, they sent some malicious code hidden in, like an HTTP request header. This code then ran on Equifax's server, an Apache Struts server. And here's the really telling part. A patch for this vulnerability. It existed, it was available, but the security team at Equifax just hadn't applied it yet. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it, for such a massive breach?
It really does. And it's a tough lesson, right? Sometimes it's the fundamentals, the basics that get missed, and that opens the door. And that failure, that mispatch, it just cascaded because their network wasn't properly segmented, like different parts weren't walled off from each other. By May 13th, the attackers could move around, they pivoted, and then they found credentials, plain text credentials, which, just gave them the keys to even more sensitive systems. Like a domino effect when basic security hygiene isn't there.
Wow. Plain text credentials. So May to July 2017, that's when they started pulling the data out.
That's right, the exfiltration phase.
They got into multiple databases, hundreds of millions of records, and they used encryption to sneak the data out, making it harder to spot.
Which is a pretty common technique, unfortunately.
Yeah, but maybe the most astonishing failure was on the monitoring side. Equifax actually had tools for this. Tools designed to decrypt network traffic, check it for suspicious stuff, and then re-encrypt it. Standard practice, really. But they weren't working. Why? Because of an expired TLS certificate.
An expired certificate. It's almost unbelievable.
It's like the digital passport for secure communication, right?
Yeah.
And because it was expired, their monitoring was completely blind, zero visibility.
Exactly. They had no idea that massive amounts of data were just walking out the door.
So when did they finally notice?
Not until July 29th. That's when administrators finally renewed the expired certificate. And the moment they did, boom, they saw the suspicious traffic immediately. It just begs the question, how does a basic oversight like an expired security certificate go unnoticed for months in a company like Equifax?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder. Okay, so shifting gears a bit,
Oh.
who was behind this? Because, interestingly, despite the sheer volume of incredibly sensitive data stolen, it never showed up for sale on the dark web.
Which is a huge clue, right? Usually cybercriminals steal data like that to sell it.
So the theory is the initial break-in, exploiting that Struts vulnerability, might have been done by initial access brokers.
Mm-hmm.
These are groups that find ways into networks and then sell that access to others.
Right. They sell the access to maybe more sophisticated attackers. And in this case, the reveal was pretty shocking. February 10th, 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 4 members of the Chinese military.
Okay. State-sponsored actors. What was the alleged motive then, if not money?
Well, putting it in context helps. Think about other massive breaches around that time. The OPM hack in 2015, Office of Personnel Management.
Right. Millions of government employee records.
Over 22 million records. And then the Marriott Starwood breach in 2018, maybe 500 million records. In both of those cases, too, the stolen data never hit the dark web markets. So a pattern suggesting something other than financial gain.
So the dossier theory. Explain that.
Investigators believe the goal, potentially directed by the Chinese government, was to collect vast amounts of personal data on Americans. Why? To build detailed files or dossiers. Specifically, perhaps, to identify U.S. government officials, intelligence officers, people who might be vulnerable.
Vulnerable how?
Maybe due to financial problems revealed in credit data or other information that could be used for blackmail or manipulation. It's about intelligence gathering on a massive scale.
That's chilling, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Equifax. The fallout must have been immense, financially, reputational.
Oh, absolutely. Huge repercussions.
There was that massive settlement, right?
Yeah.
Up to $700 million.
Yep. With the FTC, the CFPB, and basically all the U.S. states and territories.
And the total cost to Equifax for the whole incident?
Mm-hmm.
Sources say around $1.38 billion.
Yeah.
Billion dollars with a B.
It's a staggering number.
And that settlement money, how is it broken down?
Well, at least $380.5 million was earmarked for compensating affected consumers. And Equifax also committed to spending another $1 billion improving their security.
$1 billion on security after the fact. And what about leadership? Heads must have rolled.
They did. The CEO, the Chief Security Officer, or CSO, the Chief Information Officer, CIO, all left the company, which raises questions about accountability, doesn't it? And, Moody's actually downgraded Equifax's credit rating in 2019 because of all the ongoing costs from litigation and regulation.
And their public response. It didn't go smoothly either, did it?
Not at all. It was widely criticized. Remember that website they set up?
Oh, yeah, EquifaxSecurity2017.com. It looked sketchy, like a phishing site itself.
Exactly, which is just not what you want from the company that just lost your data.
And didn't their own social media team mess up, too?
They did. They mistakenly tweeted out a link to a different but similarly sketchy-looking incorrect domain, just compounding the confusion and lack of trust.
Unbelievable.
And maybe the most controversial part initially. The language on their official site required people to waive their right to sue just to check if they were impacted.
Seriously?
Yeah. That caused a huge backlash, understandably. It's a masterclass in how not to handle crisis communication. It's worth pointing out the legitimate site now for checking eligibility is run by the FTC, not Equifax.
Right. So looking beyond Equifax itself,
Mm.
the impact on people, on trust.
It was massive. Public trust in Equifax and maybe credit bureaus generally took a huge hit. Business relationships were damaged. And for those 145 million people, a massive surge in the risk of identity theft. That's terrifying.
Yeah, just knowing your most sensitive info is out there.
Yeah.
No fault of your own. So people started taking action.
Definitely. Lots of people signed up for credit monitoring, put fraud alerts on their files, froze their credit.
Which is now easier to do, right? Because of this breach.
That's one positive outcome, actually. This whole mess really spurred lawmakers. It fueled the push for stricter data protection laws like the CCPA in California, and it added momentum to things like GDPR in Europe.
It showed that, yeah, something needed to change systemically.
Exactly. Knowledge leading to action.
And you mentioned credit freezes.
Right. Congress passed a federal law making credit freezes free for everyone in the U.S. Before Equifax, you often had to pay depending on your state.
So now it's easier to lock down your credit file, making it harder for thieves to open new accounts using stolen data.
A small silver lining, perhaps.
So, bringing it all together, what are the really crucial takeaways? For you listening, for any organization, what does this teach us?
Well, there are a few really big ones. First, maybe the most obvious. Focus on the basics. This breach happened because of an unpatched vulnerability and an expired certificate. Simple things, fundamentally. They had security tools, but they weren't managed or configured correctly. Get the fundamentals right.
Okay, basics first. What else?
Second, segment your network. Isolate systems. The lack of segmentation let the attackers move around freely once they were inside. Good segmentation contains the damage if a breach does happen. It limits the blast radius, so to speak.
Makes sense. Containment.
And third, implement zero trust principles. Don't just trust users or systems implicitly, even if they're inside the network. Access to sensitive data should be strictly limited. Only give access to those who absolutely need it. Verify constantly and monitor aggressively. Prevent that kind of privilege escalation we saw here.
Basics, segmentation, zero trust. Seemed clear enough, but obviously hard to implement perfectly. So the legacy of Equifax. It's really a stark reminder, isn't it? The incredible costs, financial, reputational, personal, when cybersecurity fails. We saw how just a couple of maybe seemingly small oversights blew up into this catastrophe affecting millions.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, it's more than just looking back. It's about risk management. It's about diligence and security. It's about understanding the threats we face now. And it really makes you ask, considering how sophisticated threats are today, how prepared are we really as individuals, as companies, as a society for the next big one?
That's the question, isn't it? And maybe a final thought for you to take away. Think about how much of your digital identity, your life, is tied up in the security practices of companies you barely think about. What does that mean for your own digital habits, your own security hygiene? And maybe, what responsibility do we have as consumers to demand better protection from the organizations holding our most sensitive data? Something to think about.